Today I wanted to talk about how to work syncopated two-color brioche knitting. As you can see, we've got some brioche knitting here, and as you can tell, it alternates between which color is dominant within a row. So in this section and in these sections, you have the dark green color as the dominant color with these knit columns of the dark green. Interspersed between them are these columns of the light green, where you have the knit columns in the light green. If we look at the back of the work, it's the reverse. So where the dark green color is dominant on the right side, on the wrong side, you're going to have the light green be dominant. And likewise with the light green columns here, we have dark green being the dominant on the wrong side. This looks like perhaps it might be complicated to do, but it's really not bad. It's like working a texture pattern in regular knitting where you're alternating between knits and purls. It's the same thing here. You're going to be alternating between brioche knits and brioche purls within a given row to make this syncopated brioche. I'm assuming that you all know how to do brioche knits and brioche purls, and maybe some increases and decreases. Today I'm just focusing on the syncopated part of the pattern. To demonstrate how this works, I've already worked across the brioche section with my dark green color A, so it's already at the left side of the work here, and I'm about to start working in my light green color, which is my color B. You can also tell that because all of the loops that are around the brioche stitches are in the dark green color. Just as in regular two-color brioche knitting, you're going to be alternating between working a brioche stitch and slipping a stitch and creating a yarn over the top of the stitch, like usual. The thing to keep in mind with syncopated brioche is that where your yarn is located is going to change, because when you've worked a brioche knit stitch, your yarn is to the back and you need to bring it to the front before slipping a stitch. When you've worked a brioche purl stitch, which is this one, this is a purl stitch here, your yarn is already to the front and you just need to slip the stitch and bring the yarn to the back to create the yarn over. You're going to be slipping a stitch and then working the next stitch as it appears. So this, as you can see, is another brioche purl. So I'm going to purl it with my light green yarn. Slip that stitch, brioche purl. This was an increase. As you can see, there's those 3 stitches right there. It was a brioche knit yarn over brioche knit. So I've slipped the first stitch. I'm going to purl the middle stitch, slip the next stitch, creating those yarn overs. Oh, but here we have a change. I've been brioche purling with my light green yarn, but now I've reached one of those columns of knit stitches in the light green yarn on the front of the work. So I've just slipped my last stitch, and instead of bringing the yarn to the front in order to purl like I have been doing, I just need to bring the yarn over as I brioche knit that stitch. So I've switched gears basically. I've switched from doing my brioche knits, or excuse me, my brioche purls to my brioche knits. And I have 3 of those. Bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch. But see, now we've gone back to the brioche purls. And how do I know it's a brioche purl? Well, there's a big difference between seeing those knit column of stitches in the light green yarn, and then here we've got the purl column of stitches in the light green yarn, which is creating the knit column to the back. The only really tricky thing about syncopated two-color brioche is that you can't get into that nice rhythm where you're working across your brioche section and you can just slip and brioche purl, slip, brioche purl, that sort of thing. You need to be paying attention so that you know where your yarn is supposed to be. So for example here, if I were to automatically wrap that, my yarn is in the wrong place to work this last brioche knit. The process works the exact same way across the wrong side with both colors. I've switched to my dark green yarn, and I'm going to do exactly what I did before, except on the wrong side with the dark green color. So here I need to slip this, create, and I've got a brioche purl here in the dark green yarn. Slip up, but here I have a brioche knit in the dark green yarn. Do you see that column of green knit stitches, dark green knit stitches? So instead of wrapping my yarn all the way to make a brioche purl, I can just brioche knit, bring the yarn to the front to slip the next stitch, another brioche knit, but this is going to be a brioche purl in the dark green. You see there's that indentation, there's no longer that column of knit stitches. So I have to bring the yarn to the front again in order to purl that stitch. And of course your pattern will tell you how many brioche knits to do and how many brioche purls in any given row. Let's take another look at the front of the work to talk through what's happening here. As you might know, brioche knitting is really knitting in a ribbed pattern. It's a ribbed pattern with those extra slip stitches that kind of create these cushy lattices in between each stitch. The same thing is happening in syncopated brioche, except that there are sections where you have, for example, two brioche knits next to each other. They're just in two different colors. So they're worked at different times. It still looks as if it's in a ribbed pattern because you have the yarn over loops making this lattice in between. If you look at the back, however, you can kind of see here we have two brioche purls next to each other, and it makes a wide gap between these two columns of brioche knit stitches. The fun thing about the syncopated brioche, however, compared to regular ribbing, is that it lets you play around with color. As you can see, if you brioche knit a color on the right side of the work, it really brings that color to the front. Whereas if you purl it, it brings it to the back. So switching off between knits and purls lets you really emphasize which color is popping out versus which one goes to the back.